Okay, let's get started. I'm Professor Will, and in a continuation of our discussion on systems administration in the enterprise, we're going to be looking at the topic of user management and administration. Sysadmins, for your kind of day-to-day tasks, user administration and managing user accounts and permissions that go along with them is kind of a core skill set that you need to be able to tackle, whether it's in your operating system or managing access to a network or even some of the applications that run in your enterprise. Somewhere along the line, one of those main tasks that you're gonna have to do is create user accounts and manage them. So let's dive into it. First up, looking at this from an operating systems perspective, one of the things that, again, we have to realize is that most times when we're controlling access to an operating system, it's going to be through the use of user accounts. These user accounts are what we're going to use to authenticate, to basically prove someone is supposed to have access into a system. We're going to also use that to do our logging and tracing, and even in monitoring of those services. You get a bunch of these user accounts created, or at least the templates for them created right out of the gate when you install your operating system. So we'll start off by looking at those ones. You can break them broadly into four types. You got your systems accounts, your administrator or your super user accounts, depending on what operating system you're working with, your user accounts, and then your guest accounts. Systems accounts are probably a little bit different than the accounts that you've used if you in your kind of everyday computer usage if you're not on the admin side. So typically as a regular everyday user, you're dealing with accounts that are interactive, ones where you can plug in a username and password, and then you can get access to this to system so that you as an individual user can do whatever it is you need to do inside of that system. System accounts, though, aren't meant for people to use. They're meant for the operating system or some other subsystem program that's running inside of the operating system to utilize, because there's going to be things that the system itself needs to do in order to maintain the regular functionality of the system, or maybe you install another piece of software onto your operating system, and that piece of software needs a certain level of access in order to do its job. So in order to do that, the system itself, that system itself needs its own account to operate under. Operating systems are going to use these accounts to keep a check and balance on how different resources are being used. Usually, these system accounts are tied to some type of service, but they're not owned by like an individual. And as a matter of fact, you're probably going to set them up in a way for security purposes where an individual can actually log in with them. That's actually a security best practice. You want these system accounts to be non-interactive, because in most cases, systems accounts carry some type of administrative level permissions or privileges with them. So if somebody were to get their hands on a systems account, they'd be able to log into your system as an admin and perform all types of malicious things, and you actually wouldn't be able to tie it back to an individual because that system account doesn't actually belong to anybody. So again, it'd be a little bit hard to trace. But system accounts definitely necessary in order for your software to and your other applications to do their job. You might have to create these. Next up, we have our administrator and super user accounts. These are our highest level of accounts in any operating system. These are like the God tier accounts, right? They can do whatever they want. Usually when you're installing an operating system or a piece of software, the very first account that gets created is the administrator or super user account. We use those terms kind of interchangeably, but it really depends on what operating system that you're dealing with. They have different ways of naming stuff. So in a Windows environment, we call that top tier account, we call that the administrator account. And in a Unix environment, we call it super user, SU, or sometimes we call it root. Uh, But either way, again, highest tier account, you need it in place because as the initial account is going to be utilized to do all of that initial setup, creating files, installing software, removing stuff, adding other user accounts, providing permissions. So very important account, but you can also see why this is an account that as a sysadmin, you want to keep protected, because if someone were to get access to this level of account, again, they could do whatever they want. Next up, we have our user accounts. User accounts are going to have a moderate level of permissions because these are the accounts that your kind of basic everyday user is going to use in order to do their day-to-day work. And the user accounts are going to look different depending on what that user does for your organization. You're going to design an account that will meet their specific needs. It will give them a certain level of administrative privileges, but typically only administration over the things that they create under their account. So for example, I issue a user account to someone in HR. They use that account to create a file and will create a folder to hold some of their important HR files. Because they created that folder, they are now the owner of that folder and they have administrative rights to that folder. They can, lock it, delete it, they can do whatever they want with it, but they don't have that same level of permission to other people's folders. So that's the big difference. As an administrator, you have access to all of the content, all of the resources inside of the system. With a limited user account, you only have access to the things that you've been given permission to access and the things that you create. There's going to be varying degrees of what a user account can do, again, depending on how the admin creates that account and what the business needs are for that user account. So they'll vary widely depending on the individual that they get assigned to and the role that they're playing in their organization. A lot of times too, these user accounts aren't even assigned based on an individual. They might be assigned based on what the person does for the organization. An example of that here is, let's say I have an educational institution and we have maybe a high turnover in certain areas, maybe faculty and staff, and there's certain things that in this particular system that a faculty member needs, a staff member needs, a student needs. What I can do is I can create template accounts. I can create a generic account that any staff member who's serving in this particular capacity can use to access. And maybe we number it like staff member 1. And as that staff member is using it, they have access to it. But then they leave the role, someone else takes over that role, I can reassign that same account to the new staff member 1. And now they have the access that they need in order to do whatever it is they do for the organization. So again, sometimes the accounts aren't given to an individual. They might be based on a role, and then whoever happens to be filling the role at that time can take ownership of that account and in turn be able to do whatever that account enables them to do. Then we have our guest accounts. This is the lowest privilege account that you're going to find on the system. A lot of times we don't even activate it or deploy it because even though it can be useful in very specific scenarios, for example, let's say I'm setting up a system and the system is going to be acting as a kiosk. I'm setting up a system for organization who wants to allow people to walk in and fill out online applications to work at their company. So we might set up a computer somewhere in the organization and we might put it in kiosk mode so that anyone can get on the computer and access that very specific resource, the online application, so that they can fill it out and apply for a job. In that instance, having usernames and passwords wouldn't work out because we don't know. We don't want to issue a username and password to every person who walks in off the street to fill out an application. So instead, we create this generic guest account that will act as the way the way of accessing the system that the person needs to get to in order to do that thing that they need to do. The downside to this method is that access is anonymous. So even though the access is limited, because it's anonymous, it creates a security vulnerability. If that person were able to figure out how to do something, administrative or something tricky, while in that account, we would have no way of tying it back to an individual because they never were forced to do a login. In Windows systems, this user account, this guest account rather, is available, but it's disabled by default. So if you want to use it, you have to actively go in there and turn it on. In Linux environments, it doesn't even exist. If you want one, you have to create it and give it the proper level of permissions. Another way that we can look at user accounts is based on where they live, right? Are they local or do they live on a network? So by local, what we mean is, does that account actually reside on and provide access to an individual computer or a server? So if I were to, like, say, install an operating system on my laptop, the very first account that is going to have me create is that administrator account, like I mentioned before, because I need an admin account, an admin level account, in order to do everything else I need to do in order to set the system up. That account only exists now on that one computer, my laptop. If I were to go try to use the username and password that I created for my admin account on my computer on someone else's laptop, would that login work? Of course it wouldn't. No, because I created that account to administer my computer. It only lives in that one place. So if I'm using local user accounts in order to administer devices in a larger environment, like multiple devices, what that means is, in order for me to administer 20 computers locally, I have to have 20 local user accounts, one on each one of the devices I want to administer. So local user accounts typically play a good role in providing us access to individual devices, but they're not scalable. That's where the meaning the more devices I have to manage, the harder it is going to be to use these local accounts to do that management and administration. That's where network user accounts come into play. A network user account does not exist on that local machine. Can you use it to log into that local machine or log into that individual device? Yes, you can, but the login process is different. With a network user account, instead of creating that account right on the computer device, you will instead create your account on a server, a special type of server. They call it a domain server, or they might call it a authentication server. Essentially, is a server that holds the directory database that contains all of the objects that represent your network. In a Windows network, we would call that an Active Directory, a server. But a domain directory, is kind of a directory server is kind of a general way of referring to these specialized servers that hold things like user account informations. So I would create my account on that directory server instead of locally on my individual computer. And then anytime I needed to log into a system, instead of checking on that individual system for the presence of my account, the first place that would get checked is that directory server. I go to, up to the computer I want to log into, put in a username and password. Those credentials get passed off to the directory server. The directory server checks to see if that user account and username and password combination exists and is stored in its database. If it does and the password matches, then the directory server says, yeah, give that person trying to log in, give them access to the system that they're trying to get into, give them access onto our network. And then a person's able to log in. But at no point was that user account ever really managed, or did it ever really live on that local system? In Windows networks, we call those network accounts domain accounts. In the Unix and Linux environments, we call them shell accounts. As you start to scale your environment, like I mentioned previously, it becomes a bit unmanageable for you to have or for you to oversee, hundreds or thousands of user accounts. If I got 10 accounts I need to manage, no big deal. I can manage those individually, maybe even use them as individual local accounts. But once I have a couple of hundred, a couple of thousand accounts that I need to manage, it starts to become a little bit tedious, a little bit almost impossible. So a best practice for systems administrators in a way to make us more efficient when managing large number of accounts is to group them. We group those accounts based on some type of similarity that they have. They'll have to have something in common. Those attributes could be something like where the people work, where the user works, their position in the organization. Maybe they work the day shift or the night shift. Maybe they're in a certain department, the HR department or the IT department. But there's going to be some kind of commonality that these accounts, these accounts have in common, and that's how we're going to group them together. So you can think of the group as another type of container inside of your directory server that you can use to help manage your user accounts. Example, have an HR department. I've got 10 HR user accounts. I've created their individual user accounts by name and assigned them to those individual users. But at this point, those individual users might not have permission to do anything. They can log into the system, but that's about it. Now we want to start defining as an HR user, what should they be able to do? Once I start figuring that out, then I'm going to start assigning what they call permissions. You're allowed. You're given permission to do X, Y, and Z. I can give those permissions individually to each one of those users. And if it's only 5 users, maybe that's not a big deal. But again, we're talking about scaling. Once I get to 500 HR users, now I'm managing permissions, all of the different permissions that they need, all of the different access that they need on an individual basis for 500 people is unmanageable. So instead, what we'll do is we'll go to the group. We'll create a group called the HR group, and we'll assign those permissions that an HR person needs to the group itself. Now I can assign the permissions one time to the group. The permissions are on the group, and then I take the users and I add them. I make them members of that group. By default, when someone in a Windows environment, when a user is added to a group, they inherit the permissions of that group. So by default, again, as I move those HR personnel into that group, all of the permissions I gave to the group, they automatically get. And then the plus side of that too is added bonus, if you will, is once I remove the person from the group, they lose those permissions as well. So instead of me now having to manage those permissions for 500 users individually, I can just manage the group's permissions and then manage who is not a member of the group. And that's again a best practice for controlling access, controlling what user accounts can do on your network. Another way that we can think of user accounts is how they're created, how they come to be. You can break those into 2 categories as well: built-in accounts and user created or custom accounts. The built-in accounts, as the name implies, these are going to be user accounts that were already created when as part of the operating system. And when you installed your OS, they're just there by default, waiting for you to assign them. A big example of that is the administrator account. And as a matter of fact, the guest account too. As I mentioned before, guest account is on your in your Windows operating system by default. It's just waiting there for you to turn it on if you have a situation where you need it. The administrator account is similar. Administrator account, which is named administrator, is in your system by default, part of your operating system. It's just disabled until you give it a password and you turn it on, and then that built-in account has, does whatever it wants on your local system because it's the admin account. User created accounts are customized. They don't exist, but in your operating system, you're given the tools to create these user accounts. So let's say I wanted to have an administrator account, but I wanted to assign that administrator account to a specific individual. That'll make it, the benefit of that is it makes it easier to keep tabs on what that person is doing with that level of access that you've given them. That's actually another best practice for systems administrators. As much as possible, we want to give user created or custom accounts, especially when it comes to accounts that have administrative level access, because we want to be able to track what each one of those accounts is doing separately. If I gave everybody access to the one administrator account, how would I know if somebody is taking advantage of it? Well, I would know if somebody's taking advantage of the administrator account, but I wouldn't know who exactly the person taking advantage of it was. But if I've given everyone who's an admin their own unique admin account, now I can say, hey, your admin account was detected doing this. And then now there's a level of accountability. Same thing applies here to groups. You have built-in groups. For example, I mentioned there's an administrator account. That's an individual user account. There's also an administrators with an S group. And anyone who gets added to that administrators group inherits the permissions of an administrator. The way that you can kind of track, who's able to do what and have a higher level of accountability, we can use groups. So now, instead of giving everybody access to that one administrator account, I can enable the administrators group, add individual user accounts to the administrators group, and now those individual users have administrative privileges, but I can also audit them. I can track them individually based on what their individual account did. We can do that. We can create custom group, user created groups as well. Maybe I don't want to call my group administrators and give them access to everything. Maybe I don't want to use that default set of permissions. Maybe I want to customize the permissions that this group has. So then I go in, I create my custom group, like the HR one I did earlier, talked about earlier. I create this custom user created HR group. I give it a specific set of permissions that I choose, and then I add my members to it. And with these built-in accounts, they can exist both on your local system or in the network. So in either scenario, if I'm dealing with a one-off standalone computer and I'm using local resources, I can still I still have built-in accounts. I still can create user created accounts, but I can also do this on a network server. When I want to manage my local accounts or my local groups, there's some tools that our operating system is going to give us access to, some utilities. One of the like really important ones is local security policy. Another really important one is local security policy. Those are in Windows. In Linux and Unix, we have settings and shell that essentially do the same thing. But these are the tools that we're going to use in order to provide permissions and grant access to different things in our system, whether it's the local system or in a network setting. On networks, I mentioned before that directory servers are going to be the thing that replaces the local group access. Instead of managing things system by system, I'm going to go to a directory server, and that directory server is going to give me a centralized place to manage those resources, provide permissions, create user accounts, do any of that admin level stuff that we need to do regarding controlling access that'll happen on the directory server. What makes these directory servers special is they contain a database, and that database is where all of the settings and configurations and things I mentioned before, that database is where all that gets stored. In Windows, we call that database Active Directory, and the directory server that houses it is called a domain controller. We'll use that for our administration. The Windows directory server also gives us access to group policy manager. This is a tool that we use to create rules for how different resources are treated on our network. We can create rules for how user accounts passwords should be set up. We can create rules or policies behind how often somebody has to change their password. So again, centralize the benefit of servers in general is centralization. Here specifically, the domain directory servers are going to give you centralized control over all of the resources, user accounts, things like that, groups that exist on your network. In the Unix and Linux, we don't have the built-in, role of a domain controller and the tools to manage the directory server, but we can add in third-party tools like Samba, OpenLDAP, or FreeIPA. Just a kind of a note here. Windows, from a server perspective, servers of operating systems can be used to manage devices of a dissimilar operating system. Example, I can have a Windows server, but I can manage MacBooks or Mac Pros with that Windows server. Or I can manage Linux, computers running a Linux operating system with that Windows server. And vice versa. I can have a Linux server that manages Windows devices. However, Microsoft doesn't make it easy. So typically, if you want to manage other operating systems, let Windows be in charge. Let Windows be your domain controller, have your Active Directory database, and then use the Windows server to manage all the other devices with their various operating systems. Can it be done the other way around? Yes, but it's a bit harder. Last but not least, besides some of the technical aspects that we talked about previously, systems administrators we play like an intricate part in the business overall. To give you an example of that, in most organizations, when they're hiring somebody to become a part of that organization, they have a process that the person has to go through called onboarding. Now, this onboarding process is usually something that like HR, your human resources department, handles. But because the work that a sysadmin does is so important, the things that we help the other users in the organization accomplish is so important, we are weaved in throughout this entire onboarding process. So to kind of illustrate that for you, I went online, I pulled this employee onboarding checklist from a random company, right? So this is just kind of like an idea of what onboarding might look like for an organization. So in this one, they say during the onboarding process, the new hire is going to get an introduction, and then there's going to be some stuff that they have to do even before they start their first day of work. There's some paperwork that needs to be done, so you can imagine they got to do their taxes and their tax forms and all that stuff. They might have, once that paperwork is done, it has to be sent off for approvals. They'll talk about their job role with they'll get to meet their new supervisor. Then they might have to get their workstation, their computer that they're going to be using. Now, depending on what organization you're in, that might be systems administration work. Because maybe as a sysadmin for this organization, you're involved in desk side support. So that could be an entry point for sysadmins. But let's say they have a desk side support team in this organization. So there is no need for that. So there's no need for that in this instance. Excuse me about that. No need for that in this instance. So we kind of move on from there. But that next step, give access to any tools that they'll need. That's typically going to be a systems administrator work, because by tools we're not doing construction here. We're talking about software tools. Like they might need access to some databases. They might need access to some cloud-based applications. They might need access to network shares. All of those things fall into the purview of a systems administrator. So we have to create the accounts and the permissions for them to get that. Definitely the one I have highlighted here, create accounts. That's all systems administrator. We're creating accounts, we're creating permissions, we're giving access to those user accounts, adding them to the right groups, everything that needs to happen during that account creation process. Assign reading materials, prepare benefits packets, provide job descriptions, all those things again might be HR. But you can see even in this, even though all of this onboarding process isn't unique to sysadmins, there's a lot of key points that key parts that we have to play in getting somebody on board into the organization. Likewise, when that person is leaving the organization, the systems administrator plays a really big role. I would say maybe even a bigger role than in the onboarding, because in the onboarding process, they got hired to the company. They're new. If something isn't set up right, we can get it taken care of. With offboarding, there's some security issues in play here if that person isn't offboarded correctly. Imagine, someone is they're working on a high dollar research project, and they work for our organization. They're doing research and development, and then they find out that they're getting let go, and they get let go, but 3 days later they still have access to all of the research and development and data and everything else that they had access to when they were working for the company, and say they're disgruntled. They're mad because they got let go. What kind of situation are we in now? That's a recipe for disaster. So because of that, the same way we had a kind of formal process for onboarding, there's a formal process for offboarding or having someone exit the organization as well. This is a checklist that I found for exiting an employee, just again off from a random company off a website. Notice that there's a lot of, again, HR kind of stuff, paperwork that needs to be done, exit interviews and knowledge transfers, but there's an entire checklist specifically for IT permissions and access, and that's usually all on a sysadmin. We got to make sure if they had shared passwords to some resource, those passwords have to get changed. We need to make sure that their user accounts get revoked or disabled. We need to make sure that they get removed from the payroll system, maybe, if that's something that we manage. Directories and org charts need to get updated. Company websites, changing call logs, or disabling phone numbers, or redirecting phone numbers. There's a number of systems that need to be addressed that we as admins potentially are the ones managing. So again, even in this offboarding process, these HR processes, systems administrators going to play an important role, because again, in this idea of user account and user account permission control, we're sort of running point. All right, so hopefully that gives you a good idea of user accounts, how they're managed, how groups are managed, and some of the best practices for systems administration. And in our lab activity that ties to this, hopefully you'll be able to utilize it. All right. See you next time in the next topic.